Do animals talk in this dimension? Because I don't want to freak them out.
What a breath of fresh air. I gotta tell you guys, I really needed that. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is one of the best movies of 2018, hands down. It excels in almost every way that a film can excel, and though admittedly I just finished watching it, I'm having trouble thinking of anything at all that I didn't like about the movie. Before I get into all that though, I feel like I need to preface the review by saying that Spider-Man is my freaking jam. He's been my favorite superhero since I was just a wee lad watching old reruns of the 60s cartoon and catching new episodes of the 90s one as it first aired. I was there in 2002 for the first Sam Raimi film, opening day, as well as the second and the third, and the 2003 spin-off series animated by Mainframe Entertainment, which I just reviewed for this channel, and you can check out right here. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment and ring the bell. I was there for the Amazing Spider-Man movies, the first of which I even managed for over a year to convince myself wasn't terrible. I was there for Civil War to welcome him home to a film studio that knows what the f*** they're doing, and I celebrated that homecoming along with him last year and earlier this year. And then there was Venom, but we don't need to talk about that anymore. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is an absolute slam dunk, a home run, a goal, I don't know. The film was developed in part by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the comedy writer-director duo behind Clone High, 21 Jump Street, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, The Lego Movie, and who were infamously fired from Solo, a Star Wars story for trying too hard to turn that film into something worth watching. Into the Spider-Verse has a tightly written, emotionally compelling story. Its characters are likable, understandable, relatable, and well-developed. Obviously, the tone of the film is more comedic overall than most of the previous versions. This film is unmistakably a cartoon, but it never sacrifices any depth of storytelling for cheap laughs. I think it actually strikes a better balance in this way than a lot of the MCU movies do. Into the Spider-Verse marks the big screen debut of Miles Morales, and I think he might be the most compelling protagonist of any of these Spider-Man films. Miles' story feels familiar yet different. I'm not much of a comic book person, so I can't speak to this film's accuracy regarding its source material, but Miles' arc goes through a lot of similar beats to the traditional Peter Parker arc while managing to maintain an identity all his own. Speaking of Peter, I also love that this film shows us a different side to his character, this time having him serve as the cynical, washed-up mentor figure to Miles.
Me as the teacher who could still do it. You as the student who can do it, just not as good.
His role in the story is predictable in that way, but it's still refreshing seeing that role filled by Peter Parker, a character who's almost always portrayed as a young, wide-eyed idealist. The other various Spider people are good too. They don't get a ton of depth, this is very much the Miles and Peter's show, but Gwen Stacy at least gets a little room to shine as a character. The remaining three members are basically just there for comedic effect, but they're great at it, especially the 1930s noir detective version of Spider-Man, played by Nick Cage.
Hey fellas.
The rest of the supporting cast is great, particularly Miles' father and his uncle, played by Mahershala Ali. They even remembered to give the villain, Kingpin, played here by Liev Schreiber, a bit of humanity. Even though it feels like they were just sort of taking cliff notes from what worked well about the character on Daredevil, I still appreciate the gesture. He's a million times better than the bad guy from Venom, whose name was... Did I mention that the animation in this movie is absolutely stunning? Well, it is. I'm not exaggerating in the slightest when I say that this is one of the most gorgeous animated films I've ever seen. Not a word of hyperbole here, folks. Every single frame of Into the Spider-Verse is carefully, lovingly crafted. I've never seen anything quite like this film's unique aesthetic. It draws on comic booky elements not only as a stylistic choice, but also as a thematic extension of Miles' character arc that, besides looking great, actually has context and purpose behind it within the film's narrative. This movie was made to be watched on a big screen, if for no other reason than the animation. I would also highly, highly recommend watching the movie in 3D, which I almost never recommend. In fact, I usually hate 3D and go out of my way to avoid it, but it was the only option available at my local theater, and let me tell you, I'm glad it was. I think I kind of want to go see it again in 3D before it leaves the theater. It was that great looking. Please, Sony, Booby, stop making these and focus more on these. You finally found your niche here, so stick to it and leave the live-action interconnected universe thing to Marvel. You could do a movie for every one of the different Spider worlds featured in this film and more, and I would watch every one of them as long as they continue to let talented filmmakers like Lord, Miller, and writer-director Rodney Rothman do what they do best. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a fantastic movie, highly recommended. Do yourself a favor and go out and see it. Thanks for watching, If you like this video, you'd be doing me a huge favor by hitting the like button, subscribing, ringing the bell, and all that other jazz. I know everyone asks for that stuff, but believe me, it really does help. Drop a comment down below letting me know your thoughts on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and check out some of the other videos I've got up on this channel. As always, thanks once again very much to all of you for watching, and take care.